On this episode of Still Loading, more hidden gems, more. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I'm your host, Josh Koval, and today on the show, I don't know if this part of the episode is going to make it into the final cut, depending on how long we go. You see, we are talking about GameCube hidden gems, and you might have heard last week I did an episode with my buddy Veach all about GameCube hidden gems, and this week, I couldn't do a hidden gems episode without the guys from the GameCube Was Cool podcast. So today on the show, I have Neil and Mike. Guys, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having us on today.
Yeah, thank you
Glad
so
to be
much,
here.
Josh. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for agreeing to come on somewhat last minute, or just messaged you earlier this week. So yeah, I don't know if this section right here is gonna make it in the final cut, just because I don't know how long we're gonna go. If it's short, you're gonna hear this all roped in together with the episode with Veach. If it's longer, it's gonna be a full standalone. It's gonna be a full month on Still Loading, just to GameCube, devoted to GameCube hidden gems, which is fitting because you guys, I'm hoping, are going to come back for the 20th anniversary episode of the GameCube's release. So this is kind of like a nice homage leading up to it.
That's going to be a busy month for us. November of this year. We're really looking forward to it. We just started this podcast right at the nick of time. It seemed like 2020 was a big year for GameCube for some random reason. It all of a sudden became popular, probably because of Animal Crossing. I think that had a lot to do with it, but it just seemed like last year seemed to be the perfect time to start a GameCube podcast. And Mike and I, being lifelong friends of 20 years now, grew up with the GameCube, played it in high school and college, seemed like the perfect time. And why not go back and try and find a little bit of information on all 555 North American GameCube games. So really happy to come on today to talk about some hidden gems on the console.
Going through them 1 by 1 or 12 by 12, as you guys say.
Yep, we're the number one GameCube podcast on the
internet. So yeah, I wanted to have you on to talk about some of your hidden gems because you guys know the library better than anyone else that I know, with the exception of my friend Veach, who also knows the library pretty well, and he was on last week. And not surprisingly at all, actually, there is no overlap in your hidden gems and his hidden gems because there's just so much on the console that honestly needs to be discovered still, because I was telling Veach on this episode, which at the time we're recording this, no one has heard yet. It's not out yet, but I was telling him that I need to learn more about this console because it's a console that went past me. I grew up with the PS2 primarily. I went down to, I said this on your show actually, it went down to my friend's house who had a GameCube, and he only had a select few titles because did I say this when we talked about Metal Arms? He wasn't allowed to get violent video games. Do you remember that at all?
Yep, yeah, you did. A lot of parents were like that, I think, just violent video games. Parents weren't there yet. And I think now it's a little bit different. Like I worked in an EB Games, which I guess is GameStop to you down in the States. But I remember working there and parents buying their kids like GTA 5, just thinking like, oof, my parents back in the day only bought me SpongeBob and Spider-Man games. But I guess if you want to buy your 10-year-old GTA 5, that's cool.
There was a story, I've told it a bunch of times on the podcast. When I worked at GameStop, there was a mom who came in and bought her son Saints Row 3. Her son was probably 7 or 8 years old. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I had to keep, like, I did the thing. I'm like, ma'am, this is rated M for mature, for blah, 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 rated, sexual content, swearing, violence, all that stuff. She's like, Oh yeah, I know. I'm like, no, are you sure? I said, you can literally beat people to death with a dildo. I didn't say dildo to the customer. That would have been very, I said a 3-foot long sex toy. And then she goes, well, what kind was it?
Oh man,
and I'm
the
like,
bar
it's
is so low.
The male kind? And she goes, oh, well, he has one of those anyway, so it's okay.
What?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I knew she meant that he had that
yes,
appendage.
Yeah, yes.
Got it.
Appendage.
Okay.
But I'm like, why would you say it that way?
Oh man,
parenting. Hey, there's no right or wrong answer to it, I suppose.
Sometimes there's a wrong one.
All right, so I have you on to talk about your favorite hidden gems on the GameCube, and like I said before, none of them overlap with Veach's. So let's start it off. Do you guys have any preference which one we talk about first? Is there any?
No, we both kind of know about these. Mike has 5 games. I brought 5 games. We both know a little bit about each of the games already. I might have one or two that Mike doesn't know about, but
Mhm.
we have already talked about a lot of these games on our show, or we played them together growing up. So we're both good to talk about either one. Mike, I'll let you go first, actually.
Sure, I'll say my number one favorite hidden gem, and that's Ultimate Spider-Man, a game that I never see anyone talk about. Everyone always gives so much praise to Spider-Man 2. Personally, I'm not a big Spider-Man 2 fan of the game. That is, it doesn't age very well. For when it came out, it was amazing,
Mhm.
but playing it in 2021 is not as fun as playing Ultimate Spider-Man, which is cell shaded, so the graphics still look really nice,
Mhm.
and you can play as Venom. That's like the biggest thing that people forget about. You can play as Venom, and you start off the episode, or you start off the mission as Venom with eating a child who has a balloon in his hand, which is a throwback to Spider-Man 2, actually. So
Yeah, because that was the thing about Spider-Man 2 is that the missions, they are very repetitive. There's only like maybe 5 side missions that just keep repeating themselves, and one of those
Mhm.
is saving a kid's balloon that he
yeah.
let go of. And so in that game, it starts off with you eating the kid with the balloon, which is a really funny callback.
And
We
you
we
also face Wolverine as
mhm.
Venom in one of the best video game fights ever for me.
It was a very good game for comic book fans, where Spider-Man 2 is a great game for movie fans. The
Yes.
Ultimate Spider-Man was such a love letter to the comics. It introduced like the Human Torch, Silver Sable. I think Nick Fury might have even been in it
Mhm.
briefly. There was like just a bunch of characters that you wouldn't know of yet if you weren't a comic book fan, since this was like 3 years before I think Iron Man came
Yep.
out. So
Yep.
it was before the MCU even started. We rented this game for like my 11th birthday or something like that from Blockbuster, played it to death at night that night, and yeah, ton of fun. A lot of fun to go back to. I'm more of a Spider-Man 2 fan. We talked about that game on our
Yeah, on
Spider-Man
your
episode.
Spider-Man episode, you guys
Yeah,
debated it back and forth.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to compare the two, but yeah, definitely Ultimate Spider-Man's a must pick up if you can find it. Very hard to find. Like Spider-Man 1, the movie tie-in game, is very easy to find.
Literally at every video game store in the world.
Every console, it's on all 3 consoles at every
Yeah.
store. But Ultimate Spider-Man is difficult to find. Not too expensive, maybe 25 or $30, but definitely a
Also, the
fun one to.
GameCube version has a much higher score as well for whatever
Mhm.
reason. I think just the
Hmm.
controls lend easier for the maybe the web slinging. I can't remember exactly, but you often see the kind of Metacritic score be much higher for the Ultimate Spider-Man version or
Mhm.
GameCube version of Ultimate Spider-Man.
Mhm.
And when I was watching some gameplay vids of it, I was surprised by, like you were saying, it's cell shaded aesthetic, like it looks really nice. I also really love its cutscenes, how the cutscene
Yes.
it's not, they're showing comic book panels, but not just like, all right, here's this panel, then here's the next panel. Like the characters literally walk over the panels into the
Mhm.
next one,
It's
like
really well done.
Yeah.
through the frames and stuff like that.
It was written by Marvel comic book writers too, so they had people from the Marvel team working on it, and you could tell it definitely felt very loyal to the content it was based on. So in that sense, it was a nice change because it felt like it had been a long time since there was a Spider-Man game that wasn't based on the Raimi movies at this point. Like the ones from
Mhm.
the SNES generation and Genesis were so much fun. I don't know if you've ever played those ones, but like
I
Maximum.
actually have one of the Spider-Man games for the Genesis, complete in box and everything.
Nice. Is it
Ooh.
Maximum Carnage or Separation Anxiety? One of those two?
It's just Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Okay, I'm trying to think what game
I'll
that.
show,
I don't
I
have a
can show you it.
Genesis.
I can show you it after we're done
Yeah,
recording. I can show you the box. It's for the Genesis. I don't have Maximum Carnage, though. I know Maximum Carnage is very popular, and now it's
yeah.
actually worth a little bit.
It is. I picked it up on SNES a few years ago. It's got that red cartridge, and
Hmm.
Mhm.
again, that was just a game that's based on the comic books because there were no Spider-Man movies yet, and it felt like we were finally going back to that with Ultimate Spider-Man, and it was just a real treat of a game to play.
And the dev for this game was Treyarch, which
Mhm.
now everyone
Yep.
knows as the one of the Call of Duty developers, which is just crazy to think that like that's where they started,
Yeah.
or one of the
And
games they started with.
yeah, and they put out a great game. But yeah, I would definitely highly recommend Ultimate Spider-Man is a great hidden gem for the GameCube.
And you can't play it on any modern gen consoles since it's an Activision game.
Yep.
You can't. They've all their licensed games are kind of lost to history. So if you wanted to pick it up, you have to play it on PS2, GameCube, and I think Xbox. It's also on.
All right. So we talked about Ultimate Spider-Man. So that was yours, right, Mike?
That was, even though Neil talked talked for most of
Talk more about it than Mike
it.
did. Sorry about that, Mike.
It's okay.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add before we move
No.
on to my first game?
No. It's fitting that you did, because yeah, Neil and I did play this a lot growing up together. So we had a lot of fond memories, and I think that's why because I traded it in years ago, like most of my GameCube games when I was a kid, because that's what you do as a kid, is you either let people borrow them or trade them in for new shiny games.
You get $1 to buy your new Wii. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I really wanted to make sure I bought it again. It was a couple of years ago, because I had such fond memories playing it with
Mhm.
Neil.
It looks really cool. I might have to find a copy of it at my local game store if they have any. Hopefully, like they've been selling out of games like crazy lately with
Oh yeah.
2020 and
Yep.
2020 being what it is.
Mhm.
So, Neil, what's one of yours?
Sure. So mine are in no particular order. I didn't really rank them just because I have so many
I
games
didn't
I
rank
could.
them either.
Oh, I thought you. Oh, just
I just
that's
saw
oh,
Spider-Man
okay.
on my list. I was like, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'll jump into my first game on my list here. It's Lights, Camera, Pants, which is a SpongeBob game. It's actually a party game. Looking at the box art, you'd think this is like a brawler, just because
Hmm.
all the characters look really angry. They're all fighting. It's a 4 screen split. It's not a great representation of what the game is. It's more of a Mario Party clone, if you will, with the SpongeBob characters. You got SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, Plankton, and Sandy Cheeks. I don't think Mr. Krabs is playable in the game.
I did see him in the one when I was watching a video of it. Like there was a Krabby Patty game, or it was a burger flipping game. Where you had to catch each other, like your partner's burgers,
Right?
and you could play
Mhm.
as Mr. Krabs. At least in that
You
one.
could. Okay, I couldn't remember if I don't think I ever played as Mr. Krabs, but I guess he was in the game.
Yeah,
But
he
yeah, this
was.
was
Yep.
yeah okay. So this was just a really fun game that actually I played mostly with Mike back in the day. It's like I said, it's a Mario Party game, but it felt just I had more fun with this game at times actually than Mario Party. All the mini games are fun. Like I never really thought, oh, I don't want to play that one. And
Hmm.
the board game aspect of the game is not there. It's not a board game. It actually has a campaign, believe it or not. It's got like they're making a movie, of course, as they do in SpongeBob, and you just play these mini games in between each cutscene to unlock new mini games. And then when your friends come over, you can just make your own, basically a campaign of mini games to play back to
Oh,
back to
that's
back. And
cool.
then yeah, it's a lot of fun, and but not a lot of time it takes to unlock all the mini games, but like it almost feels like Overcooked. If you ever played that indie game, there's a
I
lot
have
of mini
not. I've
games.
heard so many good things about it, though.
It's a really fun party game, but there's some mini games in there that are basically overcooked, where you have
Yes.
to prepare meals and send them out to people and wash dishes, and
Mm.
it's all timed. So it feels like an overcooked game before that. There's even like little almost Guitar Hero bits where you have to play songs and hit buttons at the right time. And then of course the Mario Party kind of things where you're floating or hitting buttons and throwing things across stages. But yeah, all in all, this is a party game that I feel like it's missed on the GameCube because everyone talks about Mario Party. There's 4 of them on the GameCube, so it's easy to get wrapped up in those.
Hmm.
And yeah, not enough people talk about SpongeBob Lights Camera Pants, and it's very cheap. I just looked it up now on eBay. It's only $20, so it's a very affordable game to pick up, kid friendly and adult friendly too. I think this game ages very well. Personally, played it recently before the show to see if it held up, and it did fairly well actually.
Mhm.
Now the
But
big
yeah,
question is, would you still have parties and everyone play this game?
if there was no pandemic, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be the
No
one who would want to put
pants-demic? I don't
pants.
know. That was awful.
Good one.
I'm filing that one as a never.
No, for sure. I would definitely try and play this one at a party if I could. I mean, it just feels like a lot of fun to play, and it's quicker than a Mario Party game. So,
Mhm.
and everybody loves SpongeBob. Like, come on, uh,
Yeah.
classic Nick game, and it's also has a pretty fun single player mode. And I have the Game Boy Advance version of this game too, and it's just a 2D action platformer, which is random, but
It
also a
was
pretty good Game Boy
developed
Advance
by
game.
Way Forward, probably.
Most
Knowing
likely, yeah.
Way Forward seemed to have all the licensed stuff from that time. I'd have to
Mhm.
double check it because I was looking up. Hold on, Lights
It's published by
Cam
THQ, of course, but
and developed by THQ Australia. Australia. Yeah,
Australia.
Way Forward. Way Forward did the that's the wrong link. Way Forward did the Game Boy port, which is interesting.
Okay.
Like I mean that makes sense. They're really good at 2D side scrollers.
I
Yep.
think I got both versions at the same Christmas. I got the GameCube version from my parents, and then my aunt and uncle gave me the Game Boy Advance version, which was funny. But it's a hidden gem in 2 ways. In that one, it's overshadowed by Mario Party, and then two,
Hmm.
it's overshadowed by Battle for Bikini Bottom, which is the
Yeah, other
SpongeBob
SpongeBob
game.
games.
Yeah, the SpongeBob games that people talk about, which is mostly Battle for Bikini Bottom. We're also really big fans of the movie game, but Lights
Okay.
Camera Pants gets overshadowed by basically 6 games before anybody talks about this one. So
Yep.
It's funny too because I remember didn't they just come out with like an HE remake of Battle for
They
Bikini
did.
Bottom or whatever?
rehydrated, yeah.
And it's funny because I had no idea how popular this game was because I back then I was just always under the impression like licensed games are bad. Almost
Mm,
all of them are bad, so I'm
It's
not gonna
true.
like waste my time with this game. Not always the case, obviously, but it
sure.
just I just remember seeing. I'm like, why would I play a SpongeBob game? That just sounds like well, how could they turn this into a game? Lo and behold, there's a lot of good SpongeBob games out there.
Yeah. It's because they're
Yeah.
created by the SpongeBob producers and the voice actors always
Yeah.
are in these games. So it feels like you're playing an extended episode when we were like 10, 11 when this game came out. So we were right in that age of SpongeBob ism.
Mm,
SpongeBob was huge, top of the world. So yeah, you had to
yeah,
pick up every GameCube game that came out for it.
And you're right, most of these licensed games are really, really bad.
Yes.
Like we talked about Nickelodeon games a couple episodes ago on our podcast. We didn't talk about SpongeBob games because we want to save that for a whole episode
I
because
mean
there's
that's
so
this
much we
whole
can
episode.
say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I'd say we talked about 9 games and all of them were mediocre at best.
hmm Yeah.
I feel
It's
for
just
you
it's just
having
the
to
way
go through
licensed
some of the
games were.
shovelware on this system.
Oh my god. It's been fun. We try and take a lighthearted approach to some of them because
Mhm.
we know that I'm sure there are people out there where the Avatar game is their favorite game ever
Yeah, they're wrong.
for GameCube. They're wrong, but but there's a bunch of games that I played as a kid that I think were great, and you look back at them now and they're terrible.
Yeah, we have an
So
entire episode also dedicated to movie tie-in games where same thing. I don't know if
yeah,
we had a single great game in there. Maybe Rocky, I think, was the best of the 10.
again, mediocre at best, right?
Yeah.
Which was
And
most of
that's
them.
that's
So
where you fit Die Hard into that one too,
Yes,
right?
that's where we
yes.
did Die Hard. Yep.
I
Which
listened
is
to
like,
that.
why is there a Die Hard game being made in 2002? That was the biggest problem.
I love weird ideas like that where companies will make a game based off a license that's like this is not popular right now. Like this is
No,
not in the current zeitgeist.
no,
I
like Top
think
Gun in 2003.
Yeah, that's right.
there's have you guys ever watched JonTron on YouTube?
Of
Yes.
course,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you ever see his Titanic video?
Titanic?
No, Titanic.
No.
No.
So Titanic slash Titanic, he found these 2 games developed by a Chinese developer that came out around the time of the movie. So yes, it was in the zeitgeist, but they're the unlicensed games. But so what movie came out? What 98, 97, something around
Yeah.
there? Mid to late
Yep.
late mid 90s.
Yep.
There's still no sequel.
Still not the Titanic 2, the Reckoning. I don't know. It's
This
back
time it's
with a
personal.
vengeance.
Yeah.
No, so he found these 2 games that were developed by this Chinese developer, and they're unlicensed, and they're based off of the Titanic movie, but it's for the NES, not for the N64 or the PlayStation or the Dreamcast or anything like that. Not like 2 generation prior a console that was 2 generations prior that was unlicensed and obviously probably didn't make it over to the States at all. Like I don't know who they were trying to market this to, and the reason it's called Titanic is like you can only assume they didn't want to get copyrighted,
Right.
like for
I
copyright
love that.
purposes. But then they use the likenesses of Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet on the like in the game, so it's like he even makes a joke. It's like it's a good thing you didn't, or what a good thing you weren't worried about. What fuck, I can't remember the joke anymore. It was
It would be
basically
like
good
if
thing you
somebody
weren't
made a
trying to rip off Leonardo DiCaprio's face, otherwise we might really have a problem or something like that. It was a good joke though.
It would be like if someone tried to make a COVID-19 video game for the GameCube this year, basically.
Yes.
Ugh, call it COVID-18 or COVID-21.
COVID 21. It's got to be 21 or older to drink. But anyway, so yeah, so lights, camera, pants. It's interesting. I like games that have that framing reference of like this is for a TV show. Have you ever heard of this? Will be a quick segue or a quick tangent because I do want to do an episode on this game I'm about to mention. You ever heard of a game called Sheep Raider? It was also called Sheepdog Wolf over in Europe.
No.
Sheep Raider. No, I don't think
It was
so.
It's a Looney Tunes game based around you play as Wile E. Coyote trying
Oh,
to, or sorry, what Sam? It's not Sam the Sheepdog. It's not Wile E.
Sa-
Coyote. It's the
Sam the sheepdog, Sam and Ralph the wolf.
what Ralph the Wolf. You play as
Ralph
Ralph the
Wolf.
Wolf, and
Oh,
you play as Ralph the Wolf, and the objective is you're on a game show called Sheepdog and Wolf, and each you go, you know how they have the doors, see what they want to win a prize or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Well, instead of actually winning a prize, you open a door and each door is a different level. And you go into the level and you have to find a creative way to steal the sheep from Sam the sheepdog. And there's different items that you can get
Wow.
dropped in and everything. So it's a 3D puzzle game. A little bit of platforming involved, but it's mostly a puzzle game.
This
So
game
it's
looks decent too. Like graphically, it looks very well done to
yeah,
kind of
for a
convert
PS1
the
game.
yes, like to convert the Looney Tunes style, the art style of Looney Tunes, which is classic, iconic at this point. Putting that into a PS1 game, that's difficult to do. This looks very, very good. I
It
don't have a PS1 actually. I completely missed that console. I got to
It's
try and
worth
track this
checking
down.
out. It's
Hmm.
definitely worth checking out. Anyway, so we just talked about lights, camera, pants. Mike,
Yep.
what's your next hidden gem for the GameCube?
My next one, we're going to keep on the Marvel train here, and it's X-Men Legends, which is a game that, I mean, it's not necessarily a hidden gem, but for me, it was a hidden gem. I had never heard of it until our friend Harrison actually told us about it and said, "Hey, this is like a really, really good game." I was like, "No, there's no way there's good X-Men games. Like, like not." And I just figured that all the X-Men games were movie tie-ins, and most of them are. But
Mhm.
this one is kind of like a Final Fantasy take on the X-Men series. That's like the best way I could describe it.
Yeah, like
Uh,
Diablo
I
style,
was going to say it's
Diablo
more
style as
Diablo
well.
because it's that
dungeon style.
Yes.
isometric dungeon
Yep.
crawler vibe.
Hmm.
Yeah. And like it's a team aspect of Final Fantasy basically. So
Hmm.
you really get to play as like I think it's like at least 16 characters in the first one, and the second
Yep.
one I think it's like more 24
Hmm.
maybe. That you can switch between. Everyone has their different powers. You know, you have to change over to different people depending on what you want to do to progress in the level, and it's a really fun game, and it definitely has aged very well. It
Hmm.
looks fantastic. That was I was like really blown away by seeing the graphics. I was like, oh my god, this looks good.
Yeah, and there's the sequel too. There's Marvel. It's Legends 1 and 2, and the stories are both connected. They both released about a year apart, so you can probably tell the developers developed both games simultaneously and then split it in two. And it is like a bit of a prequel to the Ultimate Alliance franchise, which was pretty
Hmm.
big on PS3,
Yes.
Xbox, Wii, PSP, even, and then they just got the third one on Switch. So yeah, this is kind of where that whole concept began. Just being able to play as any Marvel character, almost like playing as with action figures on a game, because you could play as multiple characters at once, pair them together. Like how would the Hulk and the Human Torch fight together? Like it's that type of thing. I guess
Yeah.
not the
I
Hulk, that was in Marvel of Ultimate Alliance, but Wolverine and
Yes, I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah.
I actually had some of my little cousins over a while ago, and we like because we have what we call a bro day where we just kind of hang out. They're very little, so they're I shouldn't say very little, but anyway, so they come over for a bro day, quote unquote, and we pretty much just kind of hang out and play video games. I took them to a comic book shop once, type of thing, and we actually played this game together because they were
Hmm.
trying. They're both big into the Marvel movies, so I'm like, you guys like Marvel and the X-Men, like this is a game we could literally all play. I have
Hmm.
it for what do I have it for?
Probably PS2. I think that's where most people own it.
No, actually, I have it
Oh,
for Xbox.
ooh,
I have it for
okay.
Xbox, and for some reason, I have. Oh no, we were playing X-Men Legends 2, I think, because I had 4 controllers for it. But I actually have. At least I think I might have borrowed it from a friend, but I actually have the original X-Men Legends here for the GameCube. I'm literally looking at it. It's on the
Nice,
floor, but
nice.
it's right here
Great cover
where
for
it
both of them,
belongs.
especially
No,
the
I'm just
first
kidding.
one.
Oh, yeah. No, the cover art for these games are really good. They look like comic book covers.
Yeah, especially at the time when most covers for games, especially licensed games, were really bad, uh, and were very much like in like a I like to call it the new metal aesthetic, but I think people know what I mean when I say that. It's that very early 2000s edgy aesthetic that everyone was trying to go for.
Bad
So it was
Photoshop.
Hmm.
really, yeah, it was really nice to see as a designer. It was really nice to see a really beautiful cover for X-Men Legends.
And the characters weren't based on the actors because at the time
Yes.
X-Men the movies, I think X2 might have just come out and they had their X-Men movie tie-in games, but then they had these other games that were spin-offs that weren't tied in with the X-Men universe. So Hugh Jackman wasn't on the cover or any of the other actors. So yeah,
Mhm.
kind of sort of like Ultimate Spider-Man, the same sort of vein where the comic book artists got to come in, the writers came in, wrote their own original story, script, and made a game.
Yep, it's that hit and run style of development, as I like to kind of refer to how like Simpsons Hit and Run was a project born out of love with the writers and the producers of the Simpsons and the voice actors all wanting to do an actual game,
Hmm.
like a really like dedicated game that they would be proud of that basically would serve as almost like a season for them,
Yeah.
another season.
Hmm.
And that's what I feel like with Ultimate Spider-Man and X-Men Legends in terms of their development was really focused on this passion project.
Yeah.
One thing I thought was is kind of interesting about this game, when I was just doing just a tiny bit of research for it, it was also ported to the N Gauge.
Oh, baby, was it ever? We love the Engage here.
Engage and the Gizmondo. Those two consoles are neck
That's
and
my
I
neck.
know,
favorite.
right?
Want to talk about hidden gems?
Oh my god, I love weird, obscure consoles like that. Unfortunately, now because collectors markets are so big, they're kind of pricey to get
Hmm.
your hands on. I'm like, I'm not going to spend all that money for a console I'm not really going to touch. I
Right.
mean, hell, I actually have a Sega Pico or Pico,
Yep.
and I barely touch that though. It might be good for my kid when she gets old enough and has fine motor skills, and she can
Maybe
play with them.
if she's not playing iPad games.
Nope, we don't have an iPad, so not going to happen.
Oh, good, nice. Game Boys only here.
Exactly. That
Four
let's
double
get
A's.
better games in here. But okay. So, any other thoughts though on X Men Origins? Or
You
sorry,
mean
X Men
X Men
Legends?
Legends.
Legends.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. I think we can move
Yeah,
on to Neil and talk about
sure.
his third
Game
game. Second
number
game?
4. Oh yeah, my second game number 4 for today. I'll just stay on the theme of licensed games here since there are no good ones apparently. Um, so we have Godzilla Destroys All Monsters Melee.
Yes.
Yes. So now, in this generation of games, wrestling games were still fairly big. They were really big on N64, and then PS2 and GameCube had WrestleMania, WWE Day of Reckoning. I think SmackDown might have been still pretty big at the time. But there was this random, technically a wrestling game that came out for PS2 and GameCube. The Xbox version was canceled for reasons unknown. And it was basically a wrestling game where you played as Godzilla and his other foes, fighting in city streets, wrecking each other with buildings. The military would show up and fight you as well. It's a Atari published game, completely random, out of left field. This was not long after the Matthew Broderick film, I suppose, but it wasn't tied in with
Buh,
that. Yeah,
buh.
you could play as the Godzilla from that movie,
Yes,
but
you could. That's my favorite part. Godzilla 2000. You can play
Godzilla
as him.
2000, you can play as the classic Godzilla, you can play as Mecha Godzilla, Mothra is in it.
My
And
favorite.
yeah, of course, oh, Mothra's not playable though. Mothra's a stage hazard, I
Oh
think.
yeah, that's right. I got really upset on the episode that Mothra wasn't playable.
Exactly, but you can fight in like Tokyo, New York, San Francisco, Monster Island. It's got like a
Mhm.
whole bunch of stages, a whole bunch of fighters. The UI is very easy to understand. It's just menus and fight. Like it's just a
Yeah.
fighting game. I played
And you
this
can
game.
destroy everything
Yeah.
around you. That
I
was
saw
like
that in the clips I was watching.
that's
Hmm.
something that as a kid is just unbelievable to you. And
Yes.
honestly, as an adult,
Yeah,
it's like still unbelievable that they were
it's
able
super
to do this.
it's super cinematic and the explosions are all really well done. Like it's a
Yeah.
polished game. There's like the frame rate I'm sure dips at a lot of the time. But I randomly went to a friend's house for a sleepover one night and he rented a movie and a game from Blockbuster and this was that game. And I was addicted to it. Like I had to pick it up. I could never find it anywhere. It took me years to find. I fell out of video games during high school and whatnot, but going in and out of retro video game stores, one day I found
Mhm.
it. Just this one, I've never seen it before, and I found it just randomly at this game store, and I bought it instantly. And it's just a really fun game to play. I don't know like if I'd recommend it to anyone, but just there are no Godzilla games on any console really. Like there's one maybe for most generations,
Mhm.
and this is the only one on GameCube. And
And there's usually, and even when they are, they're usually not great. This at least seems decent.
this is probably the best Godzilla game I've ever seen. I've never owned any other Godzilla games. I've seen gameplay of Godzilla. I think there's some NES versions, some Super NES versions, but they all seem like more tower defense for some reason.
Mhm.
They're
I
not
mean,
really.
I'd rate this like because this is similar to the Rampage series. That's
Mhm.
probably something that you can equate this to. But I would say I have a lot more fun playing this game than the Rampage games.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, Godzilla Destroys All Monsters Melee. It's just a fun stupid beat 'em up brawler wrestling game that if you're tired of playing as The Rock or Stone Cold Steve Austin, it's just a fun thing to pick up and play with some friends for a night with some pizza
Yeah,
and beers, and then maybe forget about it or pick it up at a game store if you can find it.
It
it's
kind
so
of
much fun.
reminded me a little bit of like Soul Calibur with how the camera works
Yes.
because it kind of like goes in and out. Or like it's not just a 2D plane that you're on. You kind of
Right.
have a little bit of depth that you can rotate around.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks interesting though. I'm not a fighting game fan,
Me
but
neither.
that's generally because I'm bad at them. Uh,
Exactly. This is
uh,
something that anybody can play though, because you have the random monster powers of being huge, having abilities to fly and to breathe fire and shoot fireballs at each other. So it's very arcadey. It kind of has that almost Smash Bros. Party style to it, where it's not meant to be a
mhm.
technical fighter. It's never been a technical fighter. I'm like you. I don't play many fighting games. I've never been into Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. But if you can give me a fun arcadey fighting game to play that I can destroy buildings and hit my friend's head with them, like great. Sign me up.
Okay, so yeah, that was Godzilla. What was it called again? Godzilla
Yeah,
King, not King of
Godzilla
Fighters.
destroys all monsters melee.
That,
It's not a great name, but it gets the
it's
job
a
done.
long one. It's a
Yeah.
long one. For some reason, I kept thinking Godzilla
Yes.
King of Fighters. King of Fighters is a whole separate series of fighting games.
Yeah.
All
That's right.
right, so Mike, what do you got?
So I have Lord of the Rings: The Third Age, which is one of my favorite hidden gems just in general, and I think I'm not alone in that one. I hear a lot of people talking about Third Age. It's a really fun game that has aged aged very well. And I played this as a kid. My cousins had this game. They were really big Lord of the Rings fans, and so we would play this together on the GameCube actually, because they had a GameCube as well. And I like really fell in love with the gameplay, the story, the way that they actually brought in the movies really well with it, and not in like a weird, like not in a weird movie tie-in way, but in an actual like, oh, this is like helping the story way, because
Hmm.
it's technically, I think it's technically like all the movies combined,
Yep.
but obviously you know kind of speed through a lot of stuff,
Hmm.
and it is turn-based combat. Which for me, I'm not a big turn-based combat guy. I don't really find those games that fun. But Third Age made it really interesting for me, and it's really easy to pick up. When I played it at the cottage this year with Neil, um, I forgot that when you start the game, you basically immediately start the game. Like you are dropped in, I think, a cave somewhere, and then you just start
Mhm.
fighting people with
Yeah.
your team. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. And the HUD is really beautiful, very modern. Everything is very modern and quick,
Hmm.
which is something that these turn-based RPGs never are.
I'm surprised to hear you say you don't like other games like that because it literally is just Final Fantasy but Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, yeah, yes, that is, and I'm not a Final Fantasy fan,
Mike
so
just knows games that are like Final Fantasy. He doesn't necessarily play them.
exactly,
He knows how to identify
exactly.
them, so he knows how to avoid them. But yeah, the Lord of the Rings game, it took the subject matter of the Tolkien books and then the movies, which were huge in the early 2000s. They were making billions of dollars basically. This game did skate the line very well of being loyal to both the movie and the
Mhm.
games,
Yes,
because they didn't really, did they use the actors' likenesses? I couldn't remember.
they did. Yeah,
They they had to. So I actually looked up a little bit of information on this game. They only had the license to use stuff from the movie. So anything in Lord of the Rings universe that was not part of the cinematic world
Hmm.
was not allowed to be included. So like Tom
interesting.
Bombadil from the Fellowship of the Ring, nope,
Right.
can't be in there.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So yeah, there was like a random Lord of the Rings game on GameCube called The Hobbit, which was based on like just The Hobbit, like the book, which wasn't the movies yet. So that's a really interesting game that we haven't covered yet on our show, but we're really looking forward to it. We haven't played that one either, so not sure if it's a good game or not. But that one was weird because it was based on no part of the movies at all.
We'll be covering that
Really?
one for December 2021, so
Yeah.
this year for the
Do you
20th
guys have it?
anniversary.
Do you guys have that planned out? Like your whole lineup of the year planned out already?
No, just the ones that we know where there's like big significant anniversaries, like Lord of
I
the
Yeah.
Rings.
gotcha.
And then we
Uh,
based the other episodes around that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I gotcha. I
That'd
gotcha.
be
yeah.
wild
No,
if we did
that
though.
would be yeah, that would be a little too crazy.
Yeah. I got Lord of the Rings Third Age for Christmas one year as well. And my aunt got it for me because she saw her son playing it and was like, I've never seen graphics like this before. These are amazing. Like, you're going to love it. And I did. It's a really fun game. Again, turn-based strategy games for me aren't really my bag either, other than like Pokemon. That's kind of all I
Hmm.
can really handle. So it took a bit of getting used to for sure, but it does look very good. As Mike said, the HUD is very well designed, and going back to it now in last year 2020, it felt like a current gen game. Obviously,
Did.
graphically not quite there, but like just controlling it, looking at like how the game is designed, it feels like a game just a couple years ago. Really,
And no loading almost, like
yeah.
very little loading at all in it. That was the biggest thing that I took away, which is the quickness of everything. You know, playing
And
games like Final Fantasy, I'm used to waiting a lot.
Yeah.
that's an EA game, right?
It is an
Yeah,
EA game.
EA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great cover as well.
Hmm.
Fantastic cover.
That's interesting. I mean, I did see a little bit of the gameplay. I would say there is a lot of loading. It's just all hidden behind the cutscenes
Sure.
Sure. Yes.
because they're
Okay. That's
long cutscenes.
good point. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
That's just me being like technical though. I just like looking at them like, oh, so this is a loading zone. It's clever. I always like how game developers do that. Like, you ever walk down like a really long hallway, suddenly I'm like, oh, yep, this is a
Yeah.
loading zone.
Loading
If you can
zone.
hide it
Yeah.
well, it's like in God of War when you're squeezing through like a little tunnel. It's like, yeah, I'm loading.
Yep. Same thing in like Uncharted and like the Tomb
Yeah.
Raider
Yes.
series, all that good stuff. All right. Anything more to say about Lord of the Rings: The Third Age though?
I'm
I
good.
think that's good for my end. Yeah, I mean, great game. Definitely recommend picking it up if obviously you're a Lord of the Rings fan or like turn-based RPGs, or honestly
Mhm.
just like a good game.
Are you guys Lord of the Rings fans?
Yeah, I'm a
I would say
moderate.
we're yeah. I was gonna say I know the books and the movies, and I loved the movies when they came out, and I
Mhm.
somewhat enjoyed the books when I read them. I'm not a huge fan of the books, to be honest. They go on forever.
No,
Um,
that's my. I mean, this might anger some Tolkien fans. I hope I'm not angry. His the way he writes is just too wordy for me.
Yeah.
Like, I
yeah.
remember trying like starting the Fellowship of the Ring or the Hobbit, or I think it was the Fellowship of the Ring, and he spent like 3 pages describing a door, and I'm like,
Yep.
thanks. I know every single tree
The
this
Ho-
door was made of now, but I
The
don't
Hobbit
need
is
that.
actually The Hobbit is actually a really good book because it was meant to be like a kid's book more than an
Yes.
adult novel. And then when you get into the actual Lord of the Rings books, that's when it gets to be very meaty. I've read all the books once and I've seen all the movies maybe twice each. The Hobbit movies are terrible. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand on Lord of the Rings. It's not my favorite. I'd much rather watch like Star Wars or Harry Potter or Marvel before I watch Lord of the Rings.
I have a friend who listens to this, so she's gonna be very mad at me for the criticisms levied against Lord of the Rings, but she'll be fine.
Well,
But anyway, so yeah, so that was yours, Mike. So Neil, what's your next one?
sure. I'm going to step away now from licensed games for a bit of a change here. We just covered Wario games recently on our podcast. It'll be live by the time this episode goes up for sure. But
Mhm.
Wario World is a game that not a lot of people talk about when they talk about the GameCube. Typically, when you hear everyone talk about GameCube games, specifically like Mario Sunshine, Luigi's Mansion, those are the two that really you hear about. But you never hear about Wario World, which is kind of in the same conversation, I think should be. It's very
Mhm.
similar to like Luigi's Mansion because it's it's
Mhm.
it's a very small level design, basic platforming. It's just a beat 'em up, 3D beat 'em up game where you're playing as Wario. Very fun, very addicting. Again, quick, short campaign. It's only maybe 6 hours. The boss fights are very well designed. The levels have dozens of enemies on screen. There's never any sort of a frame rate issue, and it's just this game that really snuck under the radar. It was released midway through the GameCube generation, 2003, developed by Treasure, and not a lot of people ever really talk about it. I don't think it sold very well, and it was the last 3D Wario Land game we ever saw. We
Wasn't
had
it the only 3D Wario Land game?
Yep, I don't know if they ever really talked about doing a sequel. After this one, we had a few Wario Land games on DS. There was one around the same time on Game Boy Advance, and then we got Wario Shake It on Wii, which was a 2D game, also a very fun game. But we've had since this game came out about 9 WarioWare games, so you can kind of see where Wario went after this game came out.
Yeah.
So,
He
unfortunately,
went to
we
hang out with his treasure.
yeah, yeah, he retired from treasure hunting after this game apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a franchise that lived and died on the GameCube. It's a 3D Wario game that doesn't get a lot of love. No other way to play it but on the GameCube.
I think we could argue too that Wario games in general are hidden gems. Really,
Hmm.
there aren't really any bad Wario games. Any of them that you pick up will be a lot of fun, interesting, and it's a character people really just associate with like Mario Party or Mario Kart.
I would agree with that too because I mean Wario he has his fans, but there's so much like the Wario series was created out of a spin-off of the Mario Land games because it was
Hmm.
Super Mario Land 1, 2, and then Super Mario Land 3 was Wario Land, and that was the first time you played as Wario.
Right.
Great titles.
Um Wait, what? Sorry.
Great
Great,
titles.
yeah,
Yeah,
great
right.
naming.
And then you have Wario Land 2, Wario Land 3, and
Mhm.
Wario Land 4, and then Wario World. I would say people know Wario more now from his ancillary stuff, like when he's in Mario Kart, or when he's in
Exactly.
Mario Tennis, or when he's in Mario Golf or something like that.
Mhm.
Like they
He's a
know him
tough
more from
character.
that.
He's a tough character nowadays to give his own game because he's not cute. Like he's not a fun character. He's a bit evil. He's a bit greedy. He's fat. He's ugly. So he's not the best protagonist of a video game. Really, like it would
Neil,
be a bit.
I don't think you've seen his newest outfit. You can't call him ugly.
That's true. Now he's a fashion icon, so we can't call him
Yeah,
ugly
he's a
anymore.
fashion icon.
His new outfit in the golf game. I think he's going to get enough popularity from this new Mario Golf game to warrant his own game, but we'll see.
That
I'm
hat.
excited for the new Mario Golf game.
Oh, us too.
Oh, it
Yeah,
looks great.
awesome, chill game. Can't wait. But yeah, he is more of an ancillary character now. He got into Smash, which was a pretty big deal. He's always in Mario Party and golf and uh, I guess party. I already said that party, golf, and tennis. Really, he's always in.
I
So
find it interesting that in Smash they actually used his kind of likeness from WarioWare games,
yeah.
which that was my first introduction to the WarioWare series was Smash, and I think that that could be said for a lot of people. When I saw, I'm like, why is Wario wearing a biker outfit?
It's so weird too because like WarioWare was on the GameCube as well, so it's like
Yes.
it's not like it's an unheard of title. It didn't get that popular in North America. It's much more popular now, I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
because it's a bunch of micro games from my
Right.
understanding. Like the whole series is just each game consists of a bunch of micro games. And actually the one for the Wii, you could actually download other people's micro games too,
Yep.
almost like a proto Super Mario Maker type of
Mm-hmm.
deal.
It's app gaming before app gaming, really.
Yeah.
Right.
At the end of the day.
It's pretty
Yeah.
cool though. But yeah, no, I watching the video of it, I was impressed with the way they interpreted the 2D Wario style into 3D. I thought they did a good job with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only things I didn't like in it were I didn't like the visuals of it. Like Wario looks cool, but he doesn't match the aesthetic of the world. Like they made the world so quote unquote realistic looking compared to the
Mm,
cartoonishness of Wario. My favorite part though is the sounds.
Yes.
He
yes.
makes a noise for every fucking action he does, whether he's climbing a ladder or jumping or landing on something or
Mm-hmm.
bonking into something. Like my favorite thing is when he climbs a ladder, he's like wow 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 wow.
Yeah, and the menu
The
music,
sound
like when you
design's very
pause the
good.
game, it's all him doing the sounds. Like he's
Nah, nah, nah,
yeah.
nah, nah.
Tr-
And something I said on the episode, a fun fact, if you somehow have the balls to sit through 50 minutes of Wario going nah 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 in the pause music, he will come out and say sorry. And then the nine
That's
nine
the
nines will
payoff.
stop.
That's the
That's the
payoff for
payoff.
that.
Wait, so 50 minutes, like 50?
50. Yep.
So if you have
Yep.
friends over
50.
Wow.
and you want to sit through that for a party, but yeah, the sound design is really good. The enemies are not very exciting. It's like the same 3 or 4 enemies throughout the entire game, but that's really not the fun part. It's mainly just fighting hordes of enemies with Wario, picking guys up, slamming them into each other. It's not meant to be a very dynamic enemy base, really. You also don't really pick up any sort of power-ups. You don't get better. You finish the game with the same moves you started with. So it's very basic in that sense. But if you're just looking for a fun platformer, I don't see why you can't be talking about this game with Sunshine Mansion and Wario World. I think those are kind of the trilogy of the 3D platformers on the GameCube.
Yeah, and that's interesting too because Nintendo's known for their platformers, so it's interesting they didn't have like a large selection
No.
Nope.
like from them specifically. Obviously, there's others, other developers took up the mantle, but yeah, no, Wario World. I'm intrigued by it. Like, I actually might go seek out a copy for myself.
It
Not
has
It's
jumped up in
expensive.
price a lot. The last year it jumped a lot. I bought the game in 2019 or 18. I think I checked the receipt recently. I bought it for $40 Canadian, and we checked eBay for our episode last week, and it was 100. So it's more than doubled in price.
dear God.
I don't think it's worth $100. Just to let you know,
Well, I did
it's a
this.
hidden gem, but it's not that expensive.
Yeah, I found like a disc only for like $52,
That's too much.
53 American, 53 American.
Yeah, I
Though
guess.
That checks
someone
out.
you can bid on one for, oh, that's why it's just the case. Oh, game and case, no manual. So it's 1350 right now, and there's still 2 days left of bidding, which means it's going to skyrocket. But
Yeah. Such
But
is
in
the
any
way with
case,
GameCube games these days. I don't think we're going to
Mhm.
see a remake of it anytime soon or a remaster. You might get one day a virtual GameCube console on Switch or Switch 2 or whatever, but until then, the only way to play it is on the GameCube. So,
Yep.
there's the preservationist in me is dying a little bit. The entire month of May here on Still Loading has been sponsored by Geek Guild. Geek Guild sells everything from vinyl to headphones to video games and accessories. One of my personal favorites in their store is the Crash Bandicoot Nitro and TNT pillows. And right now, if you go to their website, geekguild.com, they are having a deal going on where if you buy a pair of headphones and a mod mic, you will get a discount on both. So go to geekguild.com and check out everything they have to offer. All right, so that was yours, Neil. Mike, back to you.
Mine would be, I'd say, definitely a hidden gem for this one. This is Time Splitters 2 for the GameCube. And Time Splitters is a franchise I've heard very few people ever mention or talk about,
Really?
which is really kind of sad to see. And it didn't sell well either, which is why it doesn't really exist anymore. But it's such a cool franchise, which is basically GoldenEye in 3D, or GoldenEye in for like the new generation consoles for
Mm-hmm.
GameCube,
mhm.
PS2. It was made by Free Radical Design, who are all like who is made up of only X-Rare developers. So it really is a rare game, for all intents and purposes. It looks like a rare game. It feels like one. It is so much fun to play, especially multiplayer.
Mm.
It's similar to Nightfire, which is a game that Neil and I love and have talked about a lot on our podcast. Another James Bond game. So it clearly has that James Bond feel to it. But yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's a shooter. Um, just kind of futuristic, I guess. You're jumping through different phases of time, so you kind of go from like it's like 1990s Siberia, you jump to 1930s Chicago and Prohibition, you jump
Right.
to the future as well, fight aliens. It's there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's a super fun game.
Yeah, it's just one of those hidden gems that up until recently has been a hidden gem. It's definitely picked up a little bit more popularity of late,
Hmm.
but uh, I would say like maybe a year or two ago, I like Mike. I never really hear people talking about this game either because everyone talks about GoldenEye, and then
Mm-hmm.
and around now you're starting to get into Call of Duty and Medal of Honor and multiplayer shooting games are not quite as popular. So yeah, like it wasn't really talked about too much. Now it is though for sure.
It's a shame too because, like you said, if it's literally the next closest thing to a modern GoldenEye that we
Yes.
have, so it's a shame that it didn't do better because it is such a good. I mean, I watched a little bit of the gameplay and I actually have the original Time Splitters for my PS2, and that's why I was surprised when to hear you say like you that it's a hidden gem, like because I've seen a lot of people talk about the Time Splitter series, at least online specifically.
Hmm. Yeah, I
So
think like Neil said, I think recently it's kind of coming up a lot more. I think people are realizing it's like, hey, this game is actually really good, and especially there's so many people being like, GoldenEye is the greatest shooter ever made. It's like, well, maybe
no,
for the time, but
Yeah,
but please try and play something else right now. And I think Time Splitters really does GoldenEye justice in terms of what it would have been if Rare had continued on that IP. So.
it's a shame, but yeah, no, I agree. People should check it out because it's. I mean, what I've played of it, I haven't played a lot of Time Splitters, but what I have played of it, it's fun. It's a good
hmm
game.
It's a great game, single player or multiplayer. Also, the fact that you can go through the entire campaign with someone else is really fun. And also, uh, in the actual campaign, you start at different points, so you're not starting together most of the time.
hmm
So, for example, in the Chicago level, you start. I think one of you starts like quite far away from the other one. One of you's on the ground, one of you's up in a building, and you have to find the snipers and see. It's like because the snipers are trying to kill the person who's on the ground.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a cool, multiplayer coach co-op experience that way.
I think that this would be considered a hidden gem just because when it comes to shooters in this generation, everyone was so focused on Halo and Metroid Prime, and a lot of games slipped under the radar a little bit. And I think
Hmm.
Time Splitters 2 is definitely one of those games that can be lumped into that category of games that if those big franchises weren't around at the time, I think it would have had a lot more spotlight. But since it didn't, I'm glad to see that now it seems like it's starting to get more notoriety. amongst
Mhm.
Three
gamers.
is also not a bad pickup.
Yep.
Future perfect.
Yep.
Although it is like $120. So
Yeah.
you're much Time Splitters 2 is definitely the fan favorite and
Hmm.
much cheaper. I think it goes for like 40 or 50. So
Yeah.
Maybe I have Time Splitters 2 and not the original one. I don't remember anymore.
the
I don't
original
remember
one
what
is
I have in my
only on
collection.
PlayStation 1, I believe.
PlayStation 2.
Is it on PlayStation 2?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I thought it was
I'm
like
pretty
around the
sure the Time
launch.
Splitter series is like that generation PS2,
Yeah.
GameCube,
Yeah, that's
Xbox.
true.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just yeah, because the Time Splitters 1 isn't on GameCube, so I
No.
always forget when one came out.
Hmm.
Hey, I do have Time Splitters too. How about that?
Hey, congratulations.
All right, there we go.
Yeah.
I was just looking back at my game wall right there. But all right, so that should be good for Time Splitters too. What is the next one? That was yours, Mike. So Neil.
Yeah, the next game on my list, I can't talk too much about just because I don't actually own this game yet because it's so dang expensive. I just discovered this game when Mike and I, so a little bit of context, before we started our podcast, we actually went through all 555 games one by one to categorize them and to see where we should put them and watch a little bit of gameplay on games that we never heard of, games that look interesting. One of those games that popped up for me was a game called Tube Slider, which was
Mm,
released in 2003. And I'm a huge fan of futuristic racing games like F-Zero, Wipeout, Fast RMX on.
Kinetica.
Sorry?
You ever heard of Kinetica?
No, what's that on? Kinetica.
I PS2. I
Oh,
think. I
okay.
think it was a PS2. So it makes sense why you hadn't played it. But anyway, go
Exactly.
on. I'll.
Yeah, no, like Extreme G, just those types of games where you're on a fast bike, fast car, spaceship, whatever it may be. So we stumbled across this game called Tube Slider, and I was like, this looks amazing. Like it's basically F-Zero. You're going down a tube. You can go 360 degrees around the tube. You hit speeds like 500 miles an hour, so it's very fast. And
Mhm.
it just looked like a sweet F-Zero, kind of an F-Zero clone, really. But I'm okay with F-Zero clones because Nintendo doesn't do them anymore, so
Yeah.
someone has
Yeah.
to. But then we went to go check the game out on eBay because I instantly wanted to get it, and it's $200 Canadian.
Are you serious?
Yeah, picking it up today would be $200. So there's enough other F-Zero spinoffs these days that I can find something else somewhere. But if I can pick this game up for cheap at another time, I definitely will. Like I said, I don't have much to talk about it. I never played it. I've just watched a lot of gameplay, and it looks like a ton of fun. It's made by ND Cube, which are the developers of the Mario Party series after
Oh,
8.
okay.
So the ones like not necessarily the most well-known Mario Party games,
Yeah, yeah.
like 9, 10, 11, and I don't think the new one, but 9, 10, and 11 they did. So yeah, just like a fairly hidden gem of a Nintendo developer making a hidden gem of a GameCube game that looks like a lot of fun.
The game I was talking about, Kinetica, that is like it's like the racers are in these body suits that are the car, like they are the cars themselves kind of. They're in these suits that have like wheels on their hands, and it's interesting looking. Like it's super something like straight out of Aeon Flux or something like that. I don't know.
Hmm,
There's actually some pretty cool screenshots you can find of it. You can do like tricks where you stand on one wheel,
cool.
but since you're on one wheel, that's literally your arm. You're like doing a pose.
Neat.
It's interesting.
I love those fast racing games. Like I'm not a huge fan of actual car racing games, like any of the Forza or Need for Speed games. I'm not big on, but Mario Kart love. But then any of these fast racing games are just almost always fun to me. If they control right and the courses are interesting, and you have that futuristic techno music playing in the background, I'm all there. I love that stuff. So yeah, Tube Slider on GameCube is a hidden gem that unfortunately very difficult to find, but I'm sure that there's ROMs to play online that I'll probably have to
Mhm.
just go and play that instead.
All right, so that is Tube Slider. So Mike,
Yeah, so I don't have a futuristic racer, although I also love futuristic racers like
I introduced
F-Zero.
them to you mostly. I just bring them
Yes, you
over.
did.
Yeah.
And but for me, I have a actual real hidden gem. There's no way to debate this one. This is Ribbit King for the
yes, that is
GameCube.
definitely a hidden gem. I listened to your because the first episode that I was on for you guys was the episode where you talked about Ribbit King.
Yep.
I talked
Correct.
about Metal Arms on that episode,
Hmm.
and I watched the gameplay of it, and my wife was in the room while I was like watching it, just doing research downstairs. She's like, "This is something I think I would play," and she doesn't say that like about anything because
Yep.
she's not a gamer, so she was like really intrigued by it.
That was one of the reasons our friend of the show, John, he came on to talk about the episode. His mom got him that game because she had the same kind of idea. She's like, "Oh, I could play this with you."
Hmm.
Because yeah, it's a golf it's technically a golf game, but you hit an object that hits a frog. I always thought you hit just hit the frogs, but you hit a frog into the hole, and you're basically trying to get them to go there in the most ridiculous way possible.
Mhm.
Is the best way to sum up the series or to sum up the
It's like
game.
reverse golf. You want the most number of strokes possible.
Kind
Yeah,
of. Yeah.
yeah, because you want to be able to hit all like the things around on the map with the frog, and but certain areas are also traps where you'll lose points.
Right.
So it's and then the hole itself is just like this massive thing to get so getting the frog into the hole is not the hard part. It's making sure you do it in the best way to get the most possible points.
Right.
But the unique thing about this game is obviously hitting frogs into golf holes, but it's more about just the character designs and just the weirdness of it. It's very, very Japanese
Mhm.
for sure.
Yes,
It gives off that
it
feel.
looks awesome.
It's so colorful and full of life, and it as Neil says, they all look like Animal Crossing characters who are
Yep.
way too happy to be in the town.
Yeah, they're almost too happy that it's terrifying how happy they all look to be doing what they're doing, and it's just very jolly and bright and pastel colors. We weren't really getting a ton of Japanese games on the GameCube, I don't think, at least compared to what we get now. Like you watch the Nintendo Direct and it's almost
Yeah.
all JRPGs. It was a very slow trickle of Japanese inspired games in this generation. Like we had one Fire Emblem game, we had Animal Crossing, we had Doshin the Giant, depending on where you live. But
Yeah, I was gonna
Mhm.
then
say, but that was the thing. Most of these Japanese-inspired games stayed in Japan.
exactly.
At this point, Nintendo wasn't really a fan of bringing over these games because they didn't think that they would translate well for the North American audience, and
Mhm.
that's why there was only a very select few that were able to come over.
It's
Yeah.
a shame because like the part of the fun of some of these games, part of the fun of hidden gems and just gaming in general is finding all the weird things that like all the weird concepts and ideas. Like I
Yeah,
remember there's a podcast I listened to, Retronauts, and they talk
Yep.
about how back on like the PS1 era was like a golden, like PS1 specifically was this golden era of game development because you would get like the big $60 titles, but then you'd get like some smaller like Pa Rappa the Rapper. Like that wouldn't
Mhm.
exist now. Like
oh
you
my
would
god,
no
yeah.
one would ever take it. No big studio would take a gamble on a game like that. But back then they would because they kept the budget low and it was like they made sure there was a way that they could make their money back. But now it's game development so expensive, it's go big or go home type of thing. So it's a shame
Yeah.
that there's not these like mid tier games from these big developers. Some still do it. I've noticed
It does exist like
Insomniac
in the
kind of
indie
does it.
space, really. In the indie
Yeah.
space, I think you'll find games like that. You really have to dig now though because it's so saturated. But if you do try to curate your lists and you sift through YouTube videos and the stores every week, you will find games out there that are just a ton of fun that no one's talking about. I think in 10, 20, 30 years, we're going to do these podcasts again talking about indie hidden gems on
Oh my. Yep.
consoles. Like random music based games, like a game like Thumper is really fun, which not a lot of people talk about because
Yeah.
everyone is playing something else. Like sports games, like we don't play a lot of sports games, but we love Golf Story,
No,
which is
you don't play a lot of sports games.
I don't play a lot of sports games. That's true.
I only
That
play NHL. That's my only one.
Yeah,
like
honestly, me
the
too.
indie space is getting to be ridiculously oversaturated, but then there are these really fun games that just hit every so often. Like I'm just playing Little Nightmares 2, which is not an indie game. It's published by Bandai Namco, but it's this little game. It takes like 4 hours to beat, and no one's playing it. Or not a lot of people play it because it's hidden behind games like Fortnite and Call of Duty
Hmm.
and other things. So there are little, and I love Unravel, which is another small game that might be hidden to history. But yeah, so these games do come out. It's just you really have to look for them and be listening.
Yeah, it's just it's a shame that you don't see it more from AAA studios though.
Hmm.
That's I think that's because like they can throw a little bit more money behind it. They have more resources, but it's like you said, the indie space has really kind of taken up that mantle. And like there
Hmm.
are some AAA studios that do it in small bits, but yeah, and indie games have come so far now. But that's a topic for a different day. I could go down on that rabbit hole for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that was
for
so
sure.
Ribbit King.
I was going to say that's another insanely expensive GameCube game now. If you wanted to pick it up today, it's also on
That
PS2 though. It's less expensive there, I think, but very hard to find. I've never seen that game in a video game store near us.
No, it goes for at least $200 Canadian for the GameCube
Oh
version.
yeah.
Now
Yeah.
it's extremely expensive. Our friend's girlfriend actually had that game and played it growing up, and that's her only GameCube memory is Ribbit King, and that's why we actually wanted to dedicate an episode to not necessarily focusing on that, but focusing on strange and weird games for
Mhm.
the GameCube, which is where we brought you and Josh to talk about Metal Arms, a
Right.
game that we had never heard of before, but it just seemed like so much fun. And that's exactly what Ribbit King is too. It's a game
Mhm.
that I'd say very few people have ever heard of, but it's just a blast to play.
Even the PS2 version of Ribbit King is $80 American.
Yeah.
Which
Like
is
that's
crazy because
not
PS2 games are never go for that much.
No,
So
I could
unless they're like really rare,
exactly.
Mhm.
like Rule of Rose or something like that.
Right.
But okay, so that was Ribbit King, and I'm not going to get it wrong this time. That was Mike. That was your pick.
That was
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
So all right, Neil, back to you.
Sure. I think this is the last game we're talking about today. Is this the last but not least
This
game?
is the last one. Ribbit King was
Oh,
my last, so this is
okay.
yours.
Last one. So my last game on my list is Cell Damage, spelled CEL Damage. It's a vehicular combat game, sort of similar to Twisted Metal, which
Mhm.
there's no Twisted Metal game on GameCube. Obviously, it's a PS2 franchise. And it's mixed with basically like Saturday morning cartoons where the cartoon characters can actually hurt each other with horrible weapons like baseball bats, chainsaws, boxing gloves, ray guns, actual guns.
Mhm.
And it's just this random, again, vehicular combat game where you're either racing or trying to do damage to each other's vehicles to win points or capture the flag. Great multiplayer modes in this game. It's a completely cell shaded game, which Mike and I love at this point. Cell shaded graphics games on
They
the
hold
GameCube.
up. They
They
hold
hold
up.
up. That's why we love
Yep.
talking about them, because 20 years later, Wind Waker still looks beautiful. A game like 13 looks beautiful, or
Sly Cooper.
Sly Cooper, Ultimate
Yep.
Spider-Man. They age well. And this is one of those games that I didn't actually know about until I found it at a video game store, local video game shop near us. Just looking at it, like, oh, this looks like something I would have loved as a kid. It's these weird, wacky cartoon characters just destroying each other on cars. It's an EA licensed game. And then last year, it actually got a port to current gen consoles. So it's on GameCube, PS2, Xbox, but then it just got re-released on PS3, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X. So this game is going around right now, and it's very cheap. I think I got it for like $4 on Switch. It looks beautiful. Mike and I were playing it at the cottage last year, and we're just having
Mhm.
a fun time. Like, it wasn't meant to be anything deep. There's not much of a story to it, really. It's kind of actually similar to the story, I think, in Lights, Camera, Pants, where they're shooting some kind of a show or a movie, and everyone's just basically you're on a TV show. So
I don't
it's
know why that framing device just captures my
just
imagination. It's one of
just
my
works
favorites.
because you love cartoon. You probably like us. You love
Yeah.
cartoons, and
I do love
you
cartoons.
just want to beat each other up with cartoon baseball bats and guns and stuff and have some fun. I can't
Mhm.
remember what it's rated T for teen too, which is interesting. Like, looking at it, you think it's a game for kids, but it's not, just based on
Yep.
I mean, you are shooting machine guns at each
yeah.
other, and you are
Yes.
also like taking axes to cars. When
Mhm.
I was watching some of the gameplay of that, like I was like, it looked awesome. Like you said,
Mhm.
the visuals of it still really hold up. It looks
Yeah.
really visually appealing. It looks like a high quality indie game, and I'm not saying that as an insult.
No,
Like
that's
because
definitely what it is.
Mhm.
that's what it looks like. It looks
Yeah.
good. But
Yeah, and
all right,
they tried to make a sequel for the game too, which was a shame. It was just declined by so many publishers. EA didn't want to do it. Sega, Ubisoft, Midway. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see a sequel to this one. So it is a game that is just going to live and die on the GameCube in terms of its originality. It is being remade, which is nice because I got to pick it up for very cheap last year and take it with us on a trip. Didn't rate very well at the time, which I think was a problem. Probably didn't sell well. It only got like 5s and 6s, so it was a very average game. But if you're looking for something to just play for 20 minutes on the bus, I think it's a really fun pickup.
and also keep in mind though, like ratings are so subjective to the time of
Mm-hmm.
they were released. Like
Of
people
course.
like Earthbound bombed in reviews when that game came out.
Right.
So I always find that interesting. Like I know that has nothing. Like I latched onto that one part of everything you said about cell damage, but it just like that type of thing about game history just always fascinates me when it's like you have like this well-known game now, but back at the time it was panned or it was
Mm-hmm.
awful, and it's just sensibilities changed. They were farther ahead of they were farther ahead of the curve than they knew.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But all
Yeah,
right,
and there's just thousands of games that come out. It's hard to
yeah.
keep everything relevant forever, right? So
But all right, that's a good place though to leave off. That's 10
cool.
hidden gem GameCube games from the GameCube Was Cool podcast. Kind of sort of emceed by me, Josh from Still Hunting. This was a lot of fun, guys. Thank you so much for hopping on the show and doing this.
Yeah.
And for listeners, you might for the And listeners, you may hear bits and pieces of this as it goes in, but I have been holding my daughter the whole time while recording. So if you hear tiny little sounds, that is why. And if it sounds a little more chopped up, I'm just giving a disclaimer. That's also why. She was a little bit fussy, but she's been good. So Neil, Mike, thank you so much. Not only for coming on, but also for taking so much time. Like I was not expecting this to go as long as it did. It especially didn't help, holding my daughter at the same time, but it worked out, and this was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, and thanks for coming on our show too. Josh was on our Weird Games episode and on our Medal of Honor episode. So if you like hearing the sound of Josh's voice, come and check out those episodes too to hear more of him come on. We love having you on, Josh. You're a really good podcaster, and hopefully we can do more shows like this in the future.
Well, thank you, and I'm bad at taking compliments, but thank you. So it was great having you guys on. So where can the good people A, find your podcast, and B, find you guys online?
Sure. Mike, do you want me to take this one?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is what I do at the end of every episode. So, all right, so yeah, like Josh said, we are the GameCube was Cool podcast. My name is Neil. I'm joined every week by my co-host Mike. Our shows go live every Thursday morning. We're on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, YouTube, pretty much Castbox, every podcast service imaginable. We're the number one GameCube podcast on the internet. We say that with pride because we definitely are. You can follow us on Instagram. We are at the GameCube Pod. We're also on Twitter and Facebook, but Instagram is definitely the better place to find us. We also have a website which was developed by Mike Lane. It's called thegamecubewascool.com. And yeah, we're about 40 episodes in now into our show, which is crazy to believe. It's been almost a year. We've covered a ton of games already. Our backlog includes Melee, Sunshine, Mario Party, Animal Crossing, and about 200 other games at this point. So we're almost halfway through the GameCube library. So if you haven't already checked out our show, go on over and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We have quite a bit more to go through. Games coming up like Double Dash, Mario Golf, Resident Evil 4, Metroid Prime 2. So lots of stuff coming up in the next year or so that we're really excited to do.
Now, when you run out of GameCube games, because that's an inevitability, are you going to keep the podcast going in some other way? I know it's kind of a off the cuff question, but I was just thinking about it. I'm like, are you guys going to keep it going?
Hell, I mean, we have
Start
until
it all over?
we
Wrap
have
it from the
until about
beginning?
No.
August of 2022, I believe. And that's kind of what we've thought is going to be our end date, roughly. I think it's going to be about 120, 130 episodes that we'll be going through. And then, yeah, after that, who knows? We'll definitely keep the GameCube podcast going in some way. We'll definitely do some, revisited episodes once in a while. It definitely won't be once a week anymore. Once that comes, we'll definitely move on to another topic or console or who knows what happens. But for now, we're just concentrated on getting those 555 North American GameCubes cataloged.
Yeah. Mike and I have such an eclectic hobby, just vast array of hobbies that we like. Like we both love music. We love fitness, and Mike loves sports and whatnot. So, and we love movies and cartoons and whatnot. So it'd be fun to kind of maybe do something in the future that touches on other topics as well. Maybe we'll do an N-Gage podcast.
That's what I want.
The N-Gage was cool.
The N-Gage was all right. We haven't so much decided it yet. Right now, it's just let's get through the GameCube and then see what happens after that. But we definitely love podcasting. It's a ton of fun and to do every week to sit down and talk to each other. So hopefully enough people out there want to hear our voices longer than just talking about the GameCube. But we'll see next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope you guys continue on with something because I do like listening to your podcast when I get around to it. So yeah, that will do it for this episode of the Still Loading Podcast. As usual, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Still Loading Pod on all of them. If you want to reach out to me, you can email me stillloadingcontact@gmail.com. You can also go to my website, stillloadingpodcast.com. If you want to support the show, you can do that in a number of different ways. You can go to patreon.com/stillloadingpod. Even just $1 a month will help grow the show. You can also go to iTunes is dead, Apple Podcasts, or whichever podcasting app you use and give it a 5-star rating and review. That helps more people find the show, and that honestly would be the most beneficial for me. And the most important shout out, of course, is the Bit by Bit Foundation. The Bit by Bit Foundation is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to put video games and video game consoles in the hands of children receiving inpatient care at hospitals. So if you want to go support them, go to bitbybitfoundation.org and consider donating. And that will do it for this episode. Mike and Neil, thank you once again for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much again for having us.
Yes, it was a ton of fun. Thank you.
And I will see you all next time.